Rick, how you doing, man?
Well, good morning, Keith Jones, back in San Francisco.
Back in the Bay. Uh,
Boy, all right.
so the title of this podcast is called Enter There. Enter There. And I was listening to an Eckhart Tolle video, and he was talking about this, Zen master who had a student. And he was asking him, how do I, experience, presence? How do I experience being conscious? How do I experience being, Zen? And he says, you hear that stream, out in the distance? He was like, yes. He says, enter there. And he was like, he tried. He's like, I can't do it. His mind is thinking. So he says, look out in the distance. You see that bird, over there, flying over the mountains? He says, enter there. He's like, he said, Master, I can't do it. I don't get it. I don't get it. So he says, okay, look over there in the forest. You see those leaves being stirred up by the wind, the rustling of the leaves? He's like, yes. He says, enter there. And so he didn't get it, right? And so what the master was trying to tell him is that bring your consciousness to one point, focus. And when you focus on something, all thought and the mind chatter, the monkey mind, it recedes and falls away. And then you become present in that moment. No thought, no thinking, and you can be completely present. And that's where Zen is. That's where consciousness is. That's where peace is. Presence is there. And so so Brian and I have this thing, Brian Chum, and I say to Brian all the time, man, every once in a while, Brian, not often, but I may be off my game and something may happen and I may start resisting something. And when I do, I need you to say, Keith, enter there. So here's an example. One day something happened and he could tell that I was like disturbed. I was not happy. And it was rare, but I was resisting something. Something had happened and I was expressing a grievance about something that had happened in my day. And I think it had to do with I'm in grad school right now. So it had to do with a grade that I got. And I got I missed getting 100% by a point or two. And I didn't agree with the grading, right? And so, and I must have talked about it brought it up twice. And Brian stops me. He says, enter there. That's all he says. He's like, except that it's 98%, enter there. And then something else happened when I'm trying to think what the exact specific thing was. It was something that happened that, I'm working on developing this thing and at Mayo, and I wanted to progress a lot sooner. But for good reason, there are all these steps. There's a process and steps in place that you need to go through. And so I was expressing some impatience, and Brian was like, he just looked at me. As Brian looks at you, he looked at me. He said, Keith, and in Brian's soothing, calm voice, he says, Keith, enter there. That's all he says. And he was like, and as soon as he said it, I knew exactly what he's talking about, because I told him to tell me this, because what it does when he tells me that, it stops me cold in my tracks of identifying with this narrative that I have going on. When something doesn't meet my expectations, it creates just enough space for me to be aware of, to take the moment. Is this something that I can control? To practice acceptance first. And then I can be aware of the choices, something I can control. If so, take action. If there's something I can't control, then accept what is. And so that's the thing that we do, man. And so we have this thing that happens all the time. If something happens with one of, something, in his personal life, and he's talking about this, and this could be different or whatever else, I'll say, Brian, enter there. So to the listeners, whenever something is going wrong and you want to resist it, it's something with an in-law, it's something that you wish were different with your job or whatever. They tell you, hey, listen, you got to, I know you've had this office by yourself for the last five months and or 5 years, and we got to have an office mate. And you're like, why I got to share my office? enter there. Share your office. And so, Rick, what do you think about that topic?
Well, I totally identify with it. It's so human for us to want to beef about the way circumstances find us. And we always feel it's a little bit unfair. And I think we always start to cast ourselves in the role of the victim. And since I've started doing this for the last 15 or so years, what I've been able to do is, instead of saying enter there, I say to myself, expectation, upset. So I'm realizing that what's trying to get to me is the idea of my own expectations. So it's really fighting my own ego to want something other than what I've been given in that moment. And so if I realize for a moment that that's an expectation that I have that's not being met, and the result of that is going to be upset, then I can step back a bit. Doesn't mean I stop instantly being upset. It's okay to be to feel whatever you feel about whatever the stimulus is. But the idea is you have to be aware of it. If you're not aware of it, you can't change it. If you're not aware of it, you can't get out of your own head enough to see that you're causing your own troubles. And so if you can do some kind of cue, like enter there, or expectation, upset, or anything that would cause you to stop in your tracks and just be thinking of what it is that you're dealing with that has to be so important. And what should happen is that you should realize that it's not important at all, then that it can fall away. Even if it is important, the idea is that you realize that the upset from that important thing is self-created. And then you have to make the decision. Do I want to continue to self-sabotage, or do I want to be peaceful and happy and let life flow? And as we've always said, you can't control the externals. Those are given. No matter what happens, those are given. It's what you do in terms of reacting and how you treat others in response to your reaction that counts.
Oh, I totally agree, Rick, man. And you and I both know from being committed to fitness and athletics our entire life that a lot of people and we met people like that, and we've been this way in some other areas of our lives, in which we are like, once I get over this obstacle or this thing that's in my life that is super important, once this passes, then I'll start whatever it is, whether it's I'll start my meditation practice, or I'll start, to get in shape, or I'll start to whatever, it's always sometime in the future that you'll start to do something that is really, good for you. Whether it's go back to school or whether it's do this, but it's in the future. Or like, I'll really start to like relax when, I get off this long, period of intense work and my vacation is around the corner. And I'll be able to settle down and be peaceful then. I'll have some time to reset. No, enter there.
That's right.
Enter now. Don't wait sometime in the future. Like, now is always the perfect moment. It's
That's right.
The perfect time.
You start where you are. It's always the only way you can get into practice. Otherwise, you're basically saying, I'm never going to start to practice. I'm never going to do anything until conditions are perfect, and conditions are never perfect. The idea is this whole practice is designed not to insulate you from life, but to make you more engaged in life by virtue of eliminating the obstacles that cause you not to be engaged. I know it's paradoxical, but the more vulnerable, the more open, the more willing you are to let things come in and hit you with the confidence that my inner gyroscope, my inner heart is not going to torture me about it. I'm not going to kill myself over this stuff because it's my expectations. It's my own self-doing that's causing the pain. The pain is not from the external. The pain is from your or my reaction to the external, wanting it to be a different way. And so that's hard to grasp, but it is absolutely true. And I think I've seen you go through so many of these things, and I've watched myself do it. It's a marvelous thing to watch how different you are in terms of accepting things that happen in your life. And those little cues, like enter there, that you get from Brian or from your own self-monitoring, those little cues matter, and they help you stay on the practice. It's just like with a fitness regimen. When you start, you can't go into the gym and be Arnold Schwarzenegger the first day. You go into the gym, and even if you don't do anything, but maybe just a couple of squats, you got the outfit on, you're with other people who are healthy. You know, it's an environment where there's no smoking, there's nobody eating donuts. That alone has some value. If you start right there, it's a little tiny, tiny step. But if you start right there, that's the beginning of a practice, of a habit that you can build on that will lead to greater and greater rewards and will really pay off. The trick is not to get knocked off. And when you get knocked off, get back on, get right back in.
100%, Rick. And it shows up in, a couple examples are, you say that, hey, I need to really get in better shape or to get back to my fitness regimen. And I'll do that later. No, the minute that alarm clock goes off, 10 toes on the floor. Don't hit the snooze. No, enter there, like immediately.
This is my challenge. This is my challenge for the moment.
That's it, exactly. And overcome it in that moment by getting up and getting with it. I have friends who are like, I just don't have time in the morning for the practice. We all got the same 24 hours in a day. Go to bed 10 minutes earlier and get up 10 minutes earlier. Same amount of time, if that's how long your practice takes. And when you're dealing with a difficult person, let's say in your life, whether it's in your personal life or whether it's at work, if you're dealing with a different person, don't wish that person to be different. What you want to do is, how do I work on me so that I'm not bothered by this? So that I'm able to keep an open heart, even if a person isn't behaving in a conscious way. That's your path. And so I have people say, I just want to move to another place. I want to do this and that. You can do that. But this thing in you that requires other people to be a certain way for you to be okay, you haven't solved that. So you're going to go somewhere else and eventually going to experience it again, and you can't handle it again. So you're going to be okay. Michael Singer says, somebody and say hello to you. You mean to tell me you can't handle that?
That's right.
Seriously, you know what I'm saying? So somebody else is inconsistent with coming to work. Okay, I can't handle that. I can handle that. I'm just going to show up and do my best, whatever it is. Somebody else takes credit for all the work I can. Okay, they take credit. I can handle this. I mean, every person with how they show up is an opportunity for you to enter into that experience and maintain an open heart. You're going to feel those doors. The ego is going to be trying to close those doors, and you just put those hands in and you just open those doors right back up.
True,
you just say, I'm entering here. I'm entering here. And I made that my practice, man. So it's not often that I am, tossed off the path. And when I say tossed off the path, it's not somebody or life situation tossing me off the path. It's my ego giving me the collar and dragging me off the path to get into the muck. And I don't want to be in the muck. I want to stay on the path. And so I've used every experience that happens, that shows up, every person as an opportunity for the practice. I enter there. And sometimes I need a little help, again, from my friends. And thankfully, I've got some amazing friends who are also on the path, and they help me stay on it. So, Rick, man, thank you so much. Is there anything you want to share in closing?
No, I just want to say that, it's not that hard. I mean, it's as hard as you want to make it in your head. It's just a matter of being willing to risk not getting what you want. And what you want is what your ego tells you want. It may not be good for you, and it probably isn't.
I like the part where I love what you said. It's not that hard. Man, the minute that I accepted, the pandemic, dude, I've had an amazing last 2 years. It's been I know it's been a lot of hardship for a lot of people, and it's been a lot of logistical, challenges to overcome. Here in ToBeRe, we went for everything in person. We had to pivot with a limited budget to a virtual platform and things like that. I was at Mayo Clinic. For a year. A year plus, I wasn't getting paid and compensated. So there is, people have experienced challenges, some in greater degrees than others. But while there were challenges, you know what there wasn't, Rick? There was not one bit of suffering.
Mhm.
because pain and challenges are inevitable.
That's right.
Suffering is optional.
Totally.
And because I didn't resist what showed up, I experienced no suffering. Had a lot of challenges, but the reason those challenges did not cause me suffering was because I used each one of them as an opportunity to apply the practice, and I entered there.
Yeah, that's great. And you know, if you could just remember those little cues that you give yourself, remember their expectation upset. When you're experiencing that stimulus that causes you to start to tighten up and want to be defensive and fight and not accept, when you can just do that and back up and monitor and say, okay, at least I'm going through this and I identify I'm going through it. Maybe you can't change it at that moment. Maybe you're so stuck in the ego part of it that you can't get out of it, but at least you are mindful of it, you're aware of it, and mindfulness will lead you out of that hole eventually if you continue to practice. But you got to continue to enter there. You've got to continue monitoring until finally you get the leverage on yourself, where you no longer want to suffer for all of these things that you are reacting to. And you put that to bed, that opens up your entire being.
It's amazing, Rick. It truly is. It opens you all up, man. And then you get to see, man, that it doesn't have to be a hostile world. It's a peaceful world, man.
Beautiful
Peaceful
world, man. It's big and beautiful, and it's waiting for you out there.
It
Go get
is,
it.
man. Rick, thank you. I love you, man.
I love you. Adios, Keith.
Adios.